When we left off to kind of start our unit and launch it up, we talked about animal observations, and we looked at the Smithsonian website, and we looked at the different animals that we could find on the webcam, right? It was pretty neat. We looked at cheetahs, we looked at elephants, and we looked at naked mole rats, right? We didn't get to see the cheetahs live, but we watched some different videos on them. What are some things we observed about the animals? Viola. We observed their habitat. Emery. What was in their part of their habitat, right? So what was in it? Yep.
What they're doing.
What the animal was doing. And Charlie, one last thing.
What they like to eat.
Possibly what they like to eat. Now, we didn't necessarily know that because we didn't see them all eating, right? Who did we see eating? Those naked mole rats. So we can start to observe some different things about them. We saw what they were doing. Who was the most active? Who was the least active?
The panda.
The panda. I guess we don't know what the cheetahs were doing because we couldn't watch the live video, but we were making observations. We were watching them. We were studying them. We were seeing what they were doing. Remember, we were learning about what zoologists can do as well. Today, I want us to go ahead and open up to page 2.2. It'll be page 21, where we're going to read about the author's purpose. And we're going to do this page together. Sound good? We are going to do this page together. And there are two main questions. If you guys look up on our board, but we have them on here as well. Author's purpose is we're going to be thinking about two main questions. The first one is on our poster, but it's also right on the page, and it says, why did the author write this passage? And the second question, read it with me, is the author trying to answer, explain, or describe? And then your job is to explain your answer, okay? So we're going to read this piece right here, and we're going to think as we go through, what is the author's purpose? So why did the author write this passage? And what is the author trying to answer, explain, or describe? And we're going to do it for this little passage, and we're going to do it together. You guys ready? Mm-hmm. I'll read it. You're following along. Show me what it looks like to follow along. You're sitting up. Your eyes are in your book. You possibly need to have your finger following along if you're someone who might struggle otherwise. Ooh, a pencil's a great way to do it too. Okay. In the 1700s, zoologist Carolus Linnaeus made a big leap for science. He set up an animal classification system. He grouped animals with similar features together. He depended mainly on human observation to do this. He did not have the tools we have now. Today, scientists use special technologies to find hidden similarities among animals. For example, they found that chimpanzees are more closely related to us than they are to gorillas. In fact, we and the chimps share an ape ancestor that lived millions of years ago. Chimps are part of a group called the Great African Apes. Gorillas, bonobos, and orangutans are part of this group. Linnaeus placed these apes in one group and us in a different one, all by ourselves. However, new research has changed things. The great African apes have joined us as part of one family. The I've got to learn these words too. Hominids. This is a big leap for science. As science continues to advance, the way we classify all the world's animals will continue to change too. So now I want us to think about these two questions. Why did the author write this passage? Turn and tell your neighbor, why do you think the author wrote this passage? Turn and talk.
Like album or something? I forgot what it was. Kind of like the guy's trying to explain. So, like science.
3, 2, 1. So I want to hear from you. Why did the author write this passage? Kason.
So people can know what happened back then.
Okay, so head back in the 1700s, right? So to know what people did back in the 1700s, but did we learn about how they dressed and what they wore and how they talked and what they did for fun? No, so we need to be more specific. I agree with part of that, Kason, having to do with the past. The author wrote us to inform us of the past, but more about what? Not just what they did back then. Explain a little bit deeper. Haley?
What the scientists did back then.
What the scientists did back then. We are adding to it. What else can we put in there? Charlie?
How they did it back in the day, that they separated animals and people.
Okay. What do we call this, guys? It's the... What is this? It's our classification. So, and I agree with all those pieces then. I would say that the author wrote this passage to let us know how the classification system has changed from the 1700s to now. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
And it talked mostly about what?
Science.
About all animals or about what?
Related.
About apes, right? Specifically those African apes and humans. Okay. That would be why the author wrote it. To tell us about how the classification systems have changed from the 1700s to now. We'll write that down in just a second. Well, actually, you guys can take a moment to write it now, but we're going to move on pretty quick. Start writing. Remember how we talked about when I say go, you got to get on it?
Yeah.
Do it. Your pencils are moving.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So why did the author write this passage? To tell us about how classification systems have changed from the 1700s to now. That is just a really quick snippet of what happened, right? You guys helped with the changing, with the classification systems, how we're talking about the past and now, and we want to put it all together. If you finish writing, you can start to think about the second question. Is the author trying to answer, explain, or describe?
Can we start writing on the second?
If you're ready, you go for it, Cooper. I'm going to give you just a few more seconds. You can finish filling it in a moment. Okay, so I want to hear from you guys. Is the author trying to explain, or sorry, to answer? Are they trying to answer something? Are they trying to explain something, or are they trying to describe something to us? What is the author's purpose for writing this? Cooper.
Explain.
Okay, he says they're trying to explain. Thumbs up if you agree that the author is explaining. And Ray, what is the author explaining?
He is telling about what they did to like classify animals and other things.
Yeah, he's explaining how the classification system has changed, right? So I would agree. It's explaining and how we classify animals. Good. Very good. Go ahead and get that written down, and we're going to jump into our read aloud. You're going to need this again today because you're going to do the same idea where you have to figure out why is the author writing this passage, and are they answering, explaining, or describing for our read aloud today as well, okay?
Okay.
So we're going to want to keep it out because we're going to use this again. Get your answers written down and get ready to move on.